All right, welcome to the virtual college exploration for all Illinois students, and it is hosted by the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling and Strive Scan. Tonight's presentation from Knox College is being recorded. The recording will be available 1 week after this session is completed and it'll be accessible at the IACAC.org website, where you're also free to sign up for hundreds of more college presentations as well. So again, go to the IACAC.org website to check out the full schedule. Please ask questions tonight of our presenters. Use the Q&A button to type any of your questions to the presenters at any time, and they will answer during the presentation tonight. Just a reminder, camera and microphone are off. So again, the main way to ask questions tonight is through the Q&A function. All right, I'm gonna send it over to our colleagues at Knox College. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for facilitating for us. Hey folks, let me get some visual aids up here so you can kind of get a sense of what we're working with here at Knox College. And here before, I was so confident I know how to present a slideshow, but for some reason now I'm not able to. I'm gonna figure it out, don't worry. So while I'm trying to figure this out, here we go, duh. We're just gonna get, tonight I'm just gonna give you a little bit of an overview about what Knox College is all about. And please do take your questions in the Q&A. I'll be happy to answer them. And I am joined tonight by my fantastic current student assistant. So my name is Sarah Colangelo. I am an admission counselor at Knox College and a senior assistant director of admission at Knox. That just means I've been around for a while. I did graduate from Knox in 2010. That's my email address. It is my job as your admission counselor to help you figure out if Knox is a good fit for you or if it's not a good fit for you. No matter what, I will cheer just as loudly for you. But think of me as kind of, I like to think of admission counselors as sort of like a concierge to the college search. So if there are people on campus you want me to connect you with, or things on campus or ideas or things you want to see or learn about, that's what I'm here for. That's what my job is. But I think you can get a lot of really great information from current students, especially now. And so I'm gonna have Annalisa introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Annalisa Gamiz. I didn't realize you were putting all my stuff up there.
I did.
Because I always forget. So that's like all the stuff that I'm involved in on campus. I'm an anthropology and sociology major with minors in political science and Spanish. I'm also on the pre-law track, so I'm hopefully going to go to law school after this and become a lawyer. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm a senior this year. So if you have any questions about like student life on campus or like what it really is like to be a student at Knox, I can answer any of those questions. So.
Excellent. Excellent. I will call on you a lot during this session because, again, I think that your insight is probably the most valuable thing that we can get here. I think as you're learning about different colleges, you're going to, see and hear a lot of the same words and phrases. And sometimes it really just takes a real person who's experiencing it to sort of help distinguish those different experiences. So let's just start with the stuff everybody wants to know, right? If you don't know anything about Knox College, let's give you the basics. So Knox is a college of about 1,200 students, right? So that means your classes are usually between 10 and 20 people, very conversation-based, very discussion-based. Students come from 45 states and 49 different countries. About 32% of Knox students from the US self-identify as students of color. Knox is about 19% in international students, so about 19% of our population comes from outside the US. There are 18 NCAA Division III athletic teams on campus, and there are over 100 student organizations. So this whole slide, I think what you can grab from this is Knox is a small community full of people from all over the place, and there's always something to do. I know, Annalisa, that you mentioned a little bit of what you do, and we saw it on the last slide, but talk a little bit about what would keep you busy, what normally keeps you busy at Knox.
Well, I'm a busy person. I like to be involved in a lot of different things. So I do a lot of like jobs on campus. So I'm like a resident assistant. I work as a tour guide in the admissions office. I worked for the Office of Sustainability, but I also do other things like I'm a part of Alpha Phi Omega, which is a service fraternity at Knox because I'm passionate about community service. I'm also a part of investing club, which is a club that I helped found. And I know nothing about investing, so please do not ask me about that. But I am like secretary of investing club. And I do just a ton of different things. So I like to be super, super busy. And I think that's the norm at Knox. You won't find many students who are not involved in a lot of different things because like once you get to Knox, you're like, oh, I like this thing, this is cool, I'm gonna try it, and then you just try a bunch of different things, and then by the end of it you're like in 10 clubs and like doing all this stuff, and you're always busy, which I don't know, that's what I like. But if you don't want to be super busy, you don't have to be either, but there's that opportunity for it. So yeah.
What was it like to found a club, and why did you found Investing Club?
I founded Investing Club because I am friends with someone who is really interested in investing, but being like a resident assistant and being like so involved in like a bunch of other clubs, I kind of knew how to like navigate that process and like all that stuff. And I ended up being secretary because I'm good at taking notes and I'm good at like organizing and stuff, which the other people were not. But I think it was honestly a fairly easy process, and a lot of students do that. So if you don't find a club that isn't really vibing with you or you're not super passionate about, you can make your own club. And it's not like super hard. Like we want students to be able to do what makes them happy.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's so interesting. And, I think right now, normally during this point in the college search process, I would be telling students to look at events calendars on college websites. But I think a lot of, this year in particular, some of those events calendars aren't always updated. And so social media has been such a critical way that I've been sort of learning what other colleges are doing and how students are keeping busy on campuses and off campus if they're off campus. So, excellent, super helpful. Okay, so those are the basics. Those are the Knox basics. I also want to point out, Knox is one of the 40 colleges that change lives. Now, if you're doing it right, there is not a college that won't change your life, right? But the 40 colleges that change lives, if you are someone who is interested in a small and immersive experience, the colleges that change lives could be a really good place for you to start. They're organized by region. Again, these are all mostly small to mid-sized colleges that really, really focus on making sure that all of the students experience something and are challenged by the experience. It's a cool group of schools, and once you sort of start to get familiar with it, you might find that your list accidentally consists of many of them, right? All right, so we're in Galesburg, Illinois, another big important fact. Galesburg, Illinois is a very cool city, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about Galesburg. Galesburg is a city of about 33,000 people. So that means that it is big enough to have things like an organic food store, and vegan pizza, those kinds of things, but also small enough that it's very walkable. It's super pedestrian friendly. It's big enough to have a bus system, but small enough to have, an easy way to get anywhere if you don't want to buy a bus ticket, It's a place with a lot of really good food. There are a ton of restaurants within 3 minutes of campus. My favorite place in town is a place called Koreana. We have wonderful Korean food in Galesburg, and there's really great Mexican food. Jalisco's is my favorite. I just had a jarochito although last week, and it was also very, very good. There's a lot of good food there. Masa Sushi is walking distance from campus. A lot of really cool coffee shops with great character. I'm going to save the best one for Annalisa to talk about because I think a lot of students really like it. But so we have these great local restaurants, and they do well. So 2 new restaurants have opened in Galesburg in the last 6 months, which is kind of amazing. But we also have things like Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And Target, and Kohl's and Marshall's and a Five Below, those kinds of things as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. What's your favorite place to eat in town?
Well, I love Baked, which is like our like a pizza place here. They do like really nice artisanal pizzas. It's not like necessarily like Domino's, which we do have, but and Baked does a thing for Knox students. On Thursdays, you get like $5 personal pizzas, which are so amazing. So it's like super common to go to Baked on a Thursday and see all your Knox friends. And like you get a nice little personal pizza, and they're like not teeny tiny, like they're good sized pizzas too. And yeah, I love Baked, but I love like every restaurant at here in Galesburg. Like they're so good. And I remember like I was like, ooh, like what am I gonna do without like a Chipotle? But then I was like, there's so many other good places that like I don't even need Chipotle. So
And if you do need Chipotle, we're about 40 minutes away from Peoria, Illinois, on one side of things, and the Quad Cities, Davenport on the other side of things. You don't need Chipotle, but if you do, they're close by. So Galesburg is close to a couple of, again, larger cities, and Peoria, again, is the one that folks tend to go to if they do need like an IMAX experience in a movie theater, and like Chipotle or a giant mall, things like that. We're also on the Amtrak line, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But the train makes it really easy to get back and forth to campus if you're from Chicago or the Chicago suburbs. It also goes to Kansas City and Colorado and California if you're ambitious. Both Peoria and the Quad Cities have some really great airports. They're small airports, but they'll get you to where you need to go. I could talk until, I could spend the rest of our time together talking about what a great opportunity Galesburg is as a place. So it is a wonderful size. We're across the street from the courthouse locally, right? And so a lot of students, you probably know more about this than I even do, a lot of students shadow and intern there. And when local politicians come through Galesburg, which they do because we're the county seat, you can have lunch with Dick Durbin, right? Or just about anybody that you can imagine. There are 2 large hospitals in town, and many, many students will shadow there, and do significant work there without the competition of a whole lot of people clamoring to get into those positions. You'll also find things in Galesburg like folks interning at small businesses. So I've heard lots and lots of stories about Knox students going into small businesses and saying, hey, I would like to do an internship. How do I do an internship with you? What are your needs? Or, hey, this is what I'm good at. Let me do this for your company. And then you hear stories about those companies expanding, right? With students in the passenger seat or in the driver's seat. You have things like, we have one of our tour guides this summer, wanted to coach a flag corps and called around to a bunch of local schools and now coaches a flag corps. So you see these things happening a lot. Galesburg is such a wonderful size to actually be able to cut your teeth on something that's interesting to you. You can intern at a local radio station. You can intern at the local public radio affiliate and put together a real story that airs on local NPR stations. That happens. So it's a wonderful size to, again, actually really be able to do things. Do you want to talk about the courthouse or anything else in Galesburg?
Sure. So like I said, I'm pre-law. So that was something that was really interesting to me. And I want to be specifically a public defender. So I auditioned. I don't know why that was the word that came to mind. I interned at the public defender's office, and I got to see court, and I got to interact with the like what an actual courtroom is like, what it's like to be a public defender, which is something like, what if I got there and I was like, this is not the job I want to do, but like I was able to see that before I like go off to law school, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna have to do every day, and spend like all that time and effort in something that I don't want to do, and that's again the norm at Knox. Most people do some sort of experience, and just like you said, Galesburg is such like an easy place to be able to find those experiences. It's not like like I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. Like if I went to ASU, I couldn't just walk up to a law firm and be like, hey, I want to intern here. They'd be like, can you get out, please? So I think the opportunities that we get from being such a small, or not such a small, but a smaller town, is amazing. And I wouldn't have gotten them going to a big state school or something like that. So
awesome. Thank you so much. It's very exciting. All right, so let's take a look at that Amtrak map. Wonderful Amtrak, I love it. So you can see Galesburg's right on the Amtrak line. Your ticket, if you're coming from Chicago or coming from the suburbs, is usually between $20 and $50. It's more often going to be $20, especially if you get it early enough. And it's such an easy ride back and forth. Knox students live and hang out at Knox, right? I want to make that very, very clear. Knox is not what people sometimes refer to as a suitcase campus. If you've ever heard that expression where, you know, everybody goes home on the weekends, that's not what Knox is. People come from all over the world, and so people tend to stay around, and there's always something happening, so it's hard to kind of get away. But if you want to get back and forth, if you make your home in Chicago or in the suburbs, it's not difficult to get back and forth. You can also kind of see here a little bit of a highway map. Galesburg is right off I-74, so pretty easy to get to from I-88 or I-80 or 39 if you're so inclined. You can get here pretty easily. Actually, Galesburg is one of those places that sometimes I feel like I see on like cool places to go in the summer if you want a little staycation and want to go antiquing, because there are quite a few very cool and interesting antique outlets in town. All right, so let's talk about Galesburg and Knox. I want to point out here, so Knox and the city of Galesburg were actually founded at the same time in 1837 by a group of abolitionists. Knox was the first institution in the state of Illinois to educate women and to educate students of color, one of the first in the nation to do so. The reason I talk about this history is because we really work at it at Knox, right? It takes a lot of work to continue a legacy like this. You cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot come to Knox and not be challenged. People are going to challenge you, and they're going to ask you tough questions. And I think at Knox, we're used to having difficult conversations and coming away from those difficult conversations with a better sense of who we are and a better sense of each other. And I think just even more closeness. You know, I think inevitably right now we live in a world full of tension. And I think that if you don't address that tension, you don't fix anything, right? And I think at Knox, folks tend to look hard at that tension and figure out, okay, what can we do? What can we do better? So we are always working very, very hard to have conversations like this. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. And also, as a student of color myself, I was very worried about that. I grew up in the high schools and the elementary schools I went to, it was like nobody was like me, and people were like, oh my gosh, you can speak Spanish, like that's crazy. And I was like, I didn't want to go to a place where I would be like the token person of color. And like every one of my best friends that I had freshman year and still have, but like when I went like in freshman year, all of them spoke Spanish, and all of them were like, yeah, I get what it's like to like have your abuela make you tamales and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and it's just, I really feel like valued. And it's not like if I take a class on race, everybody's looking at me. Like everybody is able to like have those conversations, and it was really refreshing. So
that's excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I think oftentimes they can be really difficult conversations, but again, I think they're so necessary, and I think at Knox we try to have them. We make a point of having them. Okay, how does it feel to be here? This is important. Since you're not here, you're on a computer. It's very different. Busy but not chaotic. So things are kind of always happening at Knox. But I think that also it's not unusual to see people just like sitting on the lawn and talking, or like taking a break and like sitting in the cafeteria for hours and like chatting with other folks. So there's always something happening, but there's always like a time to sort of just like relax. Productive, but not exclusively goal-oriented. So people get stuff done at Knox big time, like a lot of, I mean, you are hearing an example of that, right? People get stuff done at Knox, but it's always okay to make a mistake. It's always okay to try something and be like, oh, that didn't quite work. Like, oh, that didn't quite have legs. That's okay. We'll learn from that. We'll figure out what we need to do next, or we'll just figure out maybe we want to veer in a different direction. Collaborative, but never competitive. Knox is not a place that's competitive. It's really hard to be competitive at Knox, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But people are just very interested in each other, and they care a lot about each other, but they're never cutthroat or trying to be the best X, Y, or Z. This is my favorite one. Philosophical, but not pretentious. So Knox folks, students and alumni alike, I think, and faculty, frankly, they will go there with you. Like if you want to have a conversation and it's going to veer off, they will go there with you. But they'll also just sort of like, I don't know, they'll do it for the sake of laughing, right? For the sake of like, oh, that's interesting. Like, let's talk more about that. So there's always just sort of this joy to having these academic discussions or these philosophical discussions. Friendly but not shallow. When people ask you how you are, they mean it in a very true way. Unapologetically smart. Folks at Knox are smart, and they want to give that. I think that folks at Knox are smart, and they want to give that back to the world, right? People at Knox are pretty altruistic. And human. Again, we're people and very chill. And again, I think that's the same thing as philosophical but not pretentious. Is there anything that you would add about how it sort of feels to be at Knox? I mean, you're there.
Yeah, I think that's completely true. And especially like one of my favorites is like the collaborative but not competitive, because I just cannot do any competition is not my thing. But like I think we truly are so collaborative, and like people want to know what you're doing. People want to be involved in what you're doing. And so I'm doing honors research right now, and everybody I talk to, they're like, oh my gosh, like, can I talk to you about that? Can I can we do people just want to know more. And I think also like the unapologetically smart, that also leads into like people are here to learn. They're here to grow and become the best versions of themselves that they can be. And they're not going to be there to like step on your toes along the way to get there. Like everybody is here because we all want to learn, and whether we learn together or however that happens, people want the best for everybody. So I loved that when I came to Knox. I remember I was talking to a current student, and I was like, this is how it is? That's crazy. So yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. It's so exciting. Fantastic. All right, so here's a list of majors and minors, because this is probably something that you're going to want to think about at some point during your time at Knox. This is just a list of majors and minors, and I'll tell you a couple things about these majors and minors. Anything on this list that has a plus sign next to it, Knox offers a Bachelor's of Arts and a Bachelor's of Science. So a BA or a BS. What's the difference? Well, it just depends. Some graduate programs in the sciences prefer to see a BS, some prefer to see a BA, some don't particularly care. At Knox, it means you're going to be taking a few more science classes than you would if you went the BA route. Anything in purple on this list is new or sort of newly altered at Knox. So I like to bring up this example of peace and justice studies. So peace and justice studies was something that for years Knox students were self-designing as a minor. Knox has the first Peace Corps preparatory program in the country. They're all over the place now, but Knox's was the first. I like to brag. But Knox students, again, care a lot about the world. They're very altruistic folks. And so peace and justice studies was something that Knox students were self-designing as a program. And ultimately the college was like, okay, a lot of students are interested in this. And this year we're hiring a faculty member in peace and justice studies because students were interested in it, right? This year, every single person who came back to Knox signed a contract, and that contract said, I'm going to wash my hands, I'm going to wear a mask, and students contributed to it. So we do not hire a faculty member or approve a major or a program without some student input in some way, shape, or form. So again, a list of majors and minors. But what's really unique, what I want to talk about is how we do it. So Knox is on a 3-3 system. Some people call it a trimester system. Some people call it a 3-3 system. You can call it whatever you want, but here's how it works. So at Knox, students take 3 classes at a time. Right, so you've got 3 classes at a time, and you've got 3 10-week terms per year, right? So 3 terms per year, 3 classes at a time, that's 9 classes per year. You can kind of see how that breaks down in the calendar below. 9 classes a year, 9 times 4 years that you're at Knox is about 36, right? So you take 36 classes during the time you're at Knox. Out of those 36, it takes about 10 to 12 to finish off a major. So you've got all this extra time to do these things that are exciting to you or interesting to you, to chase rabbits, right? To try new things. That's how I like to think about it. Is you're chasing rabbits. You're kind of going after stuff that's interesting to you. Or if you're not quite sure what you want to do, start off and take a bunch of different things. Again, like you said, like figure out what you like or what you don't like. That's so critical to being satisfied with your college experience. So that 3 classes at a time, they move at a clip, right? Those 3 classes, they move pretty quickly, but a little bit unique, just kind of a different way of doing the calendar. And that's kind of how things work. Within each of those 10 to 12 classes to complete a major, you usually have 3 or 4 options, right, to plug in. So again, it's very customizable, it's very adaptable, and you're not going to be on the exact same path as any other individual student at Knox, even if they have your same major, your same minor. So you're really, again, it's hard to be competitive. It's a lot easier just to collaborate and listen and learn from what other folks have to say. A couple of things you might not find anywhere else. So first, the Power of Experience grant. What is the Power of Experience grant? Well, you've probably heard the term experiential learning at a lot of colleges. I feel like it's a big buzz term that colleges are talking about quite a bit. But how does it work at Knox? So at Knox, every student is required to do some kind of experiential learning. So you have to do it. It's something your faculty advisor will check off of a list for you. But as you can see, just one example of a Knox student who has done some, an internship and founded a club. And it's so often that we see students who found nonprofits and go abroad and do research, right? And all of these different things. And to support this, every junior at Knox is guaranteed $2,000 in Power of Experience grant. So when you get to Knox, that money is waiting for you, right? Now you can apply for research funding before this, after this, on top of this, but that money is there. So if there's something you want to do, something you want to try, that funding is going to be there for you, which is exciting. So you can kind of think now about how you might use it. A couple of examples, again, of some of those experiences. And then immersion terms is that other thing that I talked about. So immersion terms are unique to Knox. Again, you might not find these other places. You don't have to do an immersion term, but you can. So things like clinical psychology term, Green Oaks term, Japan term, open studio, repertory theater term, startup term. Clinical psych term, students take that 10 weeks and they live like they're clinical psychologists. Green Oaks term, students live at Knox's 700-acre biological field station. They live in the prairie, right, for the entire trimester. Japan term is Quick Start Japanese language and culture. Open studio is a visual arts term. Repertory theater term, students live like they're in a theater company. Startup term, it's kind of like Shark Tank term, right? Students pitch these small business ideas to alumni backers. So again, you don't have to do an immersion term, but that's something that's unique. A few things we consider in terms of your application. The most important thing to me is Knox going to be a place where you're going to be challenged, but not so challenged that you don't have fun, right? Somebody like me is the first person to read your application, and we review everything very holistically. Another word that you'll hear a lot if you start to look at colleges like Knox. I want to know who you are, right? That's important to me. Let's talk a little bit about scholarships. Of course, scholarships are somewhat based on those same things that we look at for admission. How are you doing in school? What kinds of classes are you taking? But also, who are you as a person? That matters too. Your Knox factor, which is just X factor with a KNO in front of it, because we value you as a multidimensional human being, right? Just a little scholarship chart, not my favorite thing. Knox has been test optional since 2007. So you do not have to submit your test scores. We started a trend, huh? So this chart is kind of a guideline. You can kind of get a sense, basically scholarships go up to about $34,000 a year and kind of down in increments from there. This is on the web. You don't have to commit it to memory. This is my favorite chart, I think, that Knox's website has. And again, it is on Knox's website. If you know your family's income, you can get a sense of the average financial aid and scholarship award and the range of financial aid and scholarship awards. Students pay really anywhere from $7,000 or $8,000 a year to go to Knox, all the way up to the full price, which is about $60,000 a year. Not a lot of people pay $60,000 a year, but if you want to, you're more than welcome. But so this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. It's definitely worth applying. Again, you can kind of see every college in the country is required to have a net price calculator. I'd recommend doing Knox's if it's on your list. You can kind of get a sense of what it might cost you. Just a couple of admission dates and deadlines. If you are a senior, if you're a junior, you're going to forget all this, so just look at it on the website later on. And just a few ideas of what happens after you graduate. So we've talked about all these things. We've talked about all of this stuff. And again, I think that when you have these experiences, when you're around people who challenge you to really examine what you love and what you care about and what's important to you, and you're able to do things that are important to you or things that you've always wanted to do or always thought you wanted to do, that makes you not only a really hireable employee or a really recruitable graduate school student because you have things on your resume that you can do, but it also, you know what you like, right? You know what you like, you know what you're into. So you can kind of get a sense. I mean, I think these statistics, I think they're pretty astounding. The one that I find most connected to is, you know, the number of students who donate back to Knox, who do give back to Knox, and who really care about the school. Knox alumni care a lot about Knox, and that's kind of nice. So we'll talk a little bit about the value of a Knox education. It's adaptable, it works, and it really is powerful, right? It can really challenge you in a way that's very productive. And with that, I want to talk just a little bit about ways you can see Knox virtually. If you want to talk with a current student, be it the one we have here or another one, or with me or another admission counselor, you can do that on our website. Follow our social media. That's always fun. Check out the website. I know you know how to do that. Or you can take a virtual tour. Knox is also open for in-person tours if you're so inclined and if you feel, you know, if you feel comfortable doing that. But we can get you anything online that you'd like. And with that, I would like to know what questions folks have. And actually, I wanted to start off, I didn't ask you, I mean, I know that you talked a little bit about experiential learning and sort of what that has been for you, but tell me a little bit more about some examples of experiential learning that maybe you've done or that maybe friends of yours have done.
Yeah, so I worked, like I said, I worked at the courthouse with the public defender's office. I was supposed to do a lot more this summer because I was like, oh, I gotta wait to use my Power of Experience grant money, and then all this happened, so then those didn't work out. But I know a lot of people who have studied like at The Economist in London, or people who do like study abroad trips. I knew an RA who studied abroad 4 different times, and like, it's so crazy. And I know people are always like, ooh, study abroad, like that's something that like I can't do, but at Knox, like so many people study abroad, and it's something that we want people to do. So like you can use that, like that can count as like an experiential learning sort of thing. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I know, or like another cool thing that we have is like you can do like mini study abroad trips too. I know a lot of people who have done those. So if you're not like super keen on being like away for a whole term or a whole year, you could do like a 2-week study abroad trip instead of like a 10-week one. But you also don't have to do study abroad. You can do things in the country. I know someone who was like, they did an internship in DC, and they watched like Supreme Court hearings and trials and stuff, and I was like, that's amazing, I wish I could do that. So I don't know. I think that's like one of the most amazing parts about Knox is they're like, oh, you want to do this? Okay, go. Like, go do it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing too is like I know that we talk about like again, experiential learning is such a buzz term and like you see it come up so much. But I think that like at Knox it's going to be something that really comes about organically for you. And it often does for students. So I didn't mention this, but you take 3 classes at a time and professors teach 2 classes at a time. Folks choose to work at places like Knox because they want to be around students. They want to brainstorm ideas with students. They want to sort of feed off of your passion and your excitement about learning something new. So yeah, they teach 2 classes at a time. They have you and another group of students to kind of worry about, which is really exciting because, you know, they actually know who you are. So we have an awesome question about humanities requirements, so core humanities requirements. So there are a few classes that we call them core competencies at Knox. And the thing about the core competencies is that I always forget the names of them. Which is very exciting. So hang tight just a second while I look those up. In the meantime, do you want to chat a little bit about, I mean, do you even remember taking some of, I feel like I always remember the ones that that are like a little bit more basic that, you know, you have to take. But the other ones I think are a little bit more abstract. So I'm going to look for that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit. So I don't know. I think, like you said, we don't call them like humanities requirements or something. So I don't remember exactly which ones. Also, I'm like a humanities person because ANSO is in the humanities. So like we have to do a lot of classes like that. But I think like the graduation requirements things that I had to take, or the thing that I liked about them is like, it was like, okay, you have to take a humanities course and you have to take like a quantitative reasoning course, but it wasn't like you have to take this course. This is the only one that will fulfill this requirement. There are so many courses that fulfill those requirements. And if you think, oh, well, this other course that I took, I feel like this fulfills that requirement, you can petition to have that fulfill the requirement. And then that becomes a new class that anybody can take to fulfill those requirements. So that's what I loved about it. Like all like the courses that I took to do that aren't the same courses that the next person took. So yeah, and then I don't know if you have the names of them ready.
They're called the 7 elements. So you'll take elements courses at Knox, and like for most of them, there are like anywhere between like 15 and 50 courses that will satisfy them. So the ones that I always remember, so communicate in a second language, right? At some point at Knox, you are going to probably take some sort of language class. Now you can test up in terms of proficiency, so it can be a quick experience for you, or if you want to try something new, you can do that too. The next one that I always sort of remember, conduct scientific inquiry. Well, that's pretty straightforward, but that can be anything from psychology to environmental science to computer science. And again, I want to make mention that you can take these anytime during your 4 years at Knox. So please do not try to front load these or try to get them out of the way. Apply quantitative analysis or symbolic reasoning. That's just math. Some kind of math, so statistics. There is a course called Mathematical Ideas, which is sort of like math philosophy. Analyze social, economic, or political aspects of human behavior is one. Critically examine questions of power and inequity is another. Engage in artistic creation is another one. And interpret human experience through text, sound, visual image, or performance. So those are the courses that you have to take at Knox. And I think that hopefully you can tell by the title that they're pretty broad.
Well, I was about to say, I think that's crazy. Like at other schools, like my brother goes to Arizona State University, and he, like and I use him all the time for like comparisons just because like he's my little brother. But like they have to do like an English requirement, so they have to do English 101, or he has to do like a stats requirement, so he has to do a specific stats class. And I think one of them you said was like analyzing inequity and stuff like that, and I was like, I didn't realize those were the names of them, but like it truly is so broad. So wow, crazy.
And you have a faculty advisor who is kind of your kite string through all of this, right? You know, who will sort of help you figure these things out and make sure that you get them out of the way. Another really great question, do I apply to Knox generally, or do I apply to a particular program or a particular major? Can I come in undecided? Please come in undecided. You don't have to come in undecided. Well, technically everybody at Knox does come in undecided. You don't have to declare a major or minor or anything until the end of your sophomore year. And what I really like about that is there are some faculty advisors that especially like to work with undecided students, right? So that's why I say, you know, when you start at Knox, don't feel like you have to get anything out of the way. Start taking classes that are interesting to you. Yeah. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think, like, I don't know, like, I know my brother wanted to be like a computer science person, so he had to apply to the school of like computer science and like engineering and stuff like that. And then later on when so he had to only take classes in that, and then he was like, oh, I don't really like that, so I'm gonna randomly choose another major and then go and take classes in that, and then you're kind of like wasting your time. So at Knox, like, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but I didn't know what that even meant really. So I came in undecided, and I truly did not declare until like week 8 of like sophomore year of spring term, like the last possible time I could, because I was like, I want my options open. I don't want to have to be like, oh, I'm going to be a bio person and then only take bio classes, because that's not fun. And some people are like that. Like I have a friend who knew, they were like, I'm going to be an investment banker, hence investing club. But they were like, I'm going to be an investment banker, so I'm going to take all my economics and stats courses. And so then they did all that and they loved it, so they didn't have to change anything. And they were declared by like winter term of freshman year. And then now they're doing all those like core requirements in their senior, who's like finishing those up. So you can do it either way, but you come in, like, you don't click like, I'm gonna be a bio major when you like apply.
Excellent. Yeah. I know that we don't have a whole ton of time yet left, but I think for our last question, we do have a question about residence halls and what residence halls are like. So I'm gonna let you take that one.
Okay. Well, I'm a resident assistant, so I handle all of that fun stuff. And for incoming freshmen specifically, I'll talk about that more than all the other stuff. It's a communal living style sort of thing. So there's like a living room and then rooms around it. It kind of varies from a few different places, but it's essentially just a living room and then rooms around it. So we call that suite style here. I know at other schools, like suite style is like 2 rooms and a bathroom all along like one hallway. But here we're really big about building a community, and having you like my freshman dorm, we were all best friends because we were able to like hang out in the suite together and do homework or do movie nights and stuff like that. As far as like maybe like what they look like, there's a lot of pictures online that you can see of like what exactly they look like, but they're pretty nice sized rooms. You're not going to feel cramped. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, sorry, but they're really nice, and I loved the communal living style, and your resident assistants will really like make sure that you guys are a community, and it just like gives you a nice little like home almost to come back to when you're like away from home. So
And a follow-up to that is, yes, so the question is, can you choose roommates? Do you choose where you live? And your first year, you're assigned a roommate, but if you know somebody else coming in, you can choose someone, and then you can select your preferences for your first year residence hall. But after that, yep, you pretty much choose where you want to live and who you want to live with. It's pretty easy going kind of after that, and very open, which is nice. All right. And I am guessing we are just about out of time, but I do want to say thank you to everyone who came tonight and who asked such great questions. If you do have questions afterward, please feel free to email me. Thank you very much. Or to email our wonderful solo student panelists. Or email me and I can connect you with Annalisa. I'm happy to do that. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I will say just please, if you have any questions, do email me, because I love answering questions. Like, this is my job. I love answering people's questions about Knox, and I love talking about Knox. And I'll answer the hard questions too. So if you're like, what do you hate about Knox? I'll answer that too, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, you know. So yeah, thanks for coming as well.
Great. I appreciate that everybody is saying thank you. That's so lovely. Thank you guys. All righty.